Grant Cameron is a historian who specializes in U.S. presidents and their individual connections to UFOs and extraterrestrial life. We'll talk with Grant specifically about President Barack Obama. Jason and I will also discuss alien jellyfish, developments in the Roswell UFO incident, and other space and UFO news right now on Spacing Out.
Greetings, everyone, and welcome to Spacing Out. I'm Jason McClellan.
And I'm Maureen Ellsbury. Thanks for joining us.
We'll talk with Grant Cameron on today's episode. Grant runs the website presidentialufo.com, and he specializes in historical information related to U.S. presidents and UFOs.
That's coming up later in the show, but now let's hit up some UFO news.
The mysterious object that crashed near Roswell, New Mexico in July 1947 was extraterrestrial in origin. That's the claim from former CIA official Charles Chase Brandon, made just days prior to the 65th anniversary of the Roswell UFO incident.
During a June 23rd interview on the radio program Coast to Coast AM, Brandon asserted that there was a craft from beyond this world that crashed at Roswell. Although the military's official explanation has transformed multiple times since the incident, top-secret listening devices attached to a high-altitude weather balloon is the basic explanation for what crashed near Roswell in 1947.
But as Brandon told the Huffington Post, it was not a damn weather balloon. The military claims that crash test dummies explain reports of bodies recovered at the crash site in 1947, but during his coast-to-coast interview, Brandon also attests that cadavers were recovered.
How does this 35-year CIA veteran know what happened at Roswell? Well, Lee Spiegel of the Huffington Post explains that during Brandon's final 10 years with the CIA, he served as the first official liaison to entertainment and publication industries. During this time, he claims he entered a vaulted room with restricted access at CIA headquarters in Langley, Virginia, called the Historical Intelligence Collection. While looking around this vault, Brandon apparently saw a box with the word Roswell on it. He described to the Huffington Post, "I took the box down, lifted the lid up, rummaged around it, put the box back on the shelf, and said, 'My God, it really happened.'"
Although Brandon has no problem announcing that his extraterrestrial suspicions regarding the Roswell incident were validated by the contents of this mysterious vaulted CIA box, he says he will never divulge the identity of those contents because he is bound by the CIA's secrecy agreement. Strange how selective he is in upholding that secrecy agreement.
Exactly. And you know, this isn't the first time this has happened. And, you know, a Roswell revelation around the anniversary, because it's actually the 65th anniversary of the Roswell crash. But we're going to talk with Grant Cameron later, and I think he's got some really interesting ideas about what was occurring here, what is going on right now with this.
Yeah, I mean, my personal opinion, there's a lot of red flags that come up with the details of this story, but it is interesting, and we'll get to that later in our interview with Grant Cameron to hear his theories and the discoveries he's made in his research regarding this. But interesting, and it's certainly a story that caught the media by storm this week and is still making headlines, so we'll see where it goes.
Visitors at the scenic Phoenix Mountain Resort in China's Heilongjiang province were shocked when they saw an unidentified flying object in the sky on Sunday, July 8th.
The UFO was seen at approximately 3:42 in the afternoon and was photographed by a professional photographer who had been taking photos of the visitors at the time of the sighting.
According to Chinese news site Global Times, witnesses say the object vanished rapidly after a streak of white light was detected. The incident was reported to local police and is currently being investigated.
I love sightings like this that happen in crowds of people, because having more than one witness, having a group of witnesses, really substantiates the claim, provides some additional validity, I guess, to it. We don't have much detail about this sighting, but the photo is kind of interesting. It's kind of a long streak of what appears to be maybe, I don't know, it's hard to tell. It could be anything, but it looks like smoke and a ring of smoke around that.
Right, and I think you had a great little comment before that you said, you know, it's looks like somebody shot something off. But who knows?
Yeah, it looks kind of like a rocket launch or something, but it is a strange photo.
And the other good thing about this is that the official, police are actually investigating this. So hopefully we will get an official explanation of what they at least think this object might be.
Right, they are currently investigating it. Hopefully we hear more about it. But if you want to see the photo and you're not watching our web series right now, for you podcast listeners, definitely check us out so you can watch the video, or we'll probably also post this on our website at openminds.tv. Our viewer submission today comes to us from Mauricio Ruiz in Texas.
Mauricio was provided with a photo that is a still image taken from a security camera at an oil field in Cotulla, Texas. The footage was captured on July 5th at approximately 10 p.m.
The photo allegedly shows a UFO that set off one of the oil field's motion detection cameras. And as is the case with a lot of UFO photos, it's difficult to make out much from the photo, but it looks like what's causing the attention here is some sort of lighted object at the bottom of the photo. We see maybe 3 lights, and that's really all we see. It's difficult to see any detail, and again, this is a still image taken from a security camera footage.
But hopefully we'll get, Mauricio has said he was going to go check out the area, I believe, for us, possibly, and take some daytime photos so we can see what the area looks like during the day and what if there is a possible explanation. I mean, this object is very low to the ground, and it could be a lot of things, you know, so I think we just have to wait until we have a few more details.
Yeah, it'll be great to get these additional details. So thank you, Mauricio, for submitting this. We were happy to check it out, and we're excited to see what else you come up with. And again, if you'd like to see the photo we're talking about and you're not watching us on YouTube right now, definitely go to our website, openminds.tv, and you can check the photo out for yourself. In space news this week, although Hollywood prefers to depict extraterrestrials as hostile, grotesque creatures with features resembling humans, one scientist believes extraterrestrials might actually resemble jellyfish instead.
British scientist Dr. Maggie Pocock is the researcher who recently suggested that aliens could look like a giant jellyfish. This satellite expert, government advisor, and leading scientist at European space company Astrium described her theory on United Kingdom TV channel Eden as part of Science Month. She explains, "My vision of aliens is an inhuman silicone-based life form that looks much more like a jellyfish than sci-fi's little green men."
British paper The Independent provides a detailed description of Pocock's imagined extraterrestrial. They say, she imagined aliens that drift through methane clouds, scooping up chemical nutrients in their mouths. The creatures could also be able to live off light taken in through their skin. The alien jellyfish, which Dr. Pocock imagines could be the size of a football field and have an orange underbelly, would be generated from silicon as opposed to carbon, which is the basis of all life as we know it. The orange underbelly could actually act as camouflage, allowing them to evade would-be predators. The aliens are kept afloat by onion-shaped buoyancy bags that dangle from their bodies, taking in or letting out gas in order to gain or lose altitude. She also suggests they could communicate using pulses of light.
The Independent also reports that Pocock believes that there could be as many as 4 intelligent alien civilizations in existence in our galaxy. But because of the distances involved, she doesn't think we could ever encounter them.
While most supposition by scientists regarding extraterrestrial life is based on life as we know it, Pocock calls her idea of extraterrestrial jellyfish an example of life not as we know it. And this is particularly interesting to me because I've shared a similar idea to this theory of jellyfish aliens, jellyfish extraterrestrial life, and that's based on personal observations I've had of things in the sky, as well as science fiction writers have described extraterrestrials like this for a while now, as well as naturists and science writers. Trevor James Constable is one, and Ivan T. Sanderson, both referred to the possibility of creatures they called sky critters, these atmospheric beings living here on Earth in our own atmosphere, these kind of jellyfish that swim through the sky. So it's not a new concept. She's specifically referring to things that are possibly on moons elsewhere in our galaxy, but
methane-based life
right.
forms.
On Titan, I believe she specifically mentioned.
Right, and this is it's an interesting concept. And then she goes further when she talks about thinking that there's 4 possible alien civilizations. I have no idea what she's basing that on.
No, it seems like a lot of just jumping to conclusions there. Sure,
but it is. I mean, if you look at all the different life forms on Earth, the fact that one civilization or object of an alien looking like a jellyfish is not a shocking concept. And I mean, she's got very detailed in there with the camouflage underbelly and
Well, and she did say she based a lot of this idea off of looking at deep sea life here on Earth, and we keep discovering new species all the time, new animals that are unlike anything we've ever seen before.
That's a good point, because like you said, on the like Titan and other places where they believe there might be a hidden ocean underwater, that maybe those life forms would be more resembling deep sea creatures.
So it's an interesting idea. Again, it's not a new idea, but I think it could possibly help people to start thinking about other examples of what extraterrestrial life could look like. But again, I mean,
escaping the Hollywood a little bit.
Yeah, Hollywood has done a great job, great or not great job, at ingraining this idea of the typical extraterrestrial in our minds. But I think the general public, should be reminded that it's an unknown world and it's a gigantic universe, and extraterrestrials are going to not just look like one thing. There's going to be many different variations, just like here on Earth. On December 2nd, 2010, NASA announced the discovery of a special bacteria from Mono Lake in California known as GFAJ-1 that are able to survive in an arsenic environment by substituting arsenic for phosphorus in their cells. The geomicrobiologist who led the study of this bacteria, Felisa Wolf-Simon, stated that this, quote, opens the door for us to think about biology in ways we have never thought. But new research could close that door.
A team of scientists published results of their research in the journal Science on Monday, July 9th, and they concluded that bacteria in Mono Lake can indeed grow under high arsenic and low phosphate conditions, but it needs at least some phosphate to grow at all. In the original paper, the authors noted the presence of a small amount of phosphorus, but they had determined that it wasn't enough to sustain the bacteria. The new team of researchers found this to be incorrect. They assert that small amounts of phosphorus were, in fact, enough to keep the bacteria alive.
The original research conducted by Wolf-Simon and her team was also published in the journal Nature. In response to the new research, Nature released a statement saying, "The new research shows that GFAJ-1 does not break the long-held rules of life, contrary to how Wolf-Simon and her team had interpreted the data."
Well, NASA made such a big deal about this announcement in 2010. I know we both watched the press conference.
They hyped it up so much, even with their press release announcing that they were going to have this press conference. They were hyping it up, saying that they were going to make an announcement that was going to impact the search for extraterrestrial life. So they definitely, were creating this hype around this announcement and getting behind it because it was a NASA-funded study.
Yeah, and we were very disappointed that it ended up being something that had already pretty much been announced before.
Oh, it was like 5 years before they'd found similar bacteria in another lake in California.
And now we're just backstepping, but...
And again, I mean, this is just another team of scientists coming to their conclusions, doing a similar, if not the same, sort of research, but that's something we see in science a lot, and scientists don't always agree with each other.
Yeah, I mean, it's still interesting data, but kind of back to square one on that one. Yeah. As we reported a couple weeks ago, the National Geographic Channel recently solicited responses to the famous WOW signal detected by the Big Ear radio telescope in 1977.
Supposing the WOW signal was an attempt at extraterrestrial communication, Nat Geo welcomed messages from viewers that will be beamed to space in August after the conclusion of the network's new series Chasing UFOs. The network also solicited responses from celebrities, comedians, and scientists. One scientist the network contacted was astrophysicist Adam Frank.
Now, Frank initially thought the concept was a good idea, but his enthusiasm was soon diminished. He explained in an NPR blog post, "Then I looked at the website and saw a whole lot of UFOs, chasing UFOs to be exact. The WOW reply, which I thought was an absolutely beautiful idea, was part of a series called Chasing UFOs, which seemed to include a trio of attractive hosts staring meaningfully into the camera. I guess they will be taking us all on tours of the spectacular world of UFOs. Snooze."
He goes on to criticize the study of UFOs by stating, "I love crazy ideas as much as the next guy, but UFOs are not science, and passing them off as such does no service to anyone. Even if the WOW signal had an ET origin, that would hardly imply that we are routinely being visited, probed, prodded, or having our evolution messed with by aliens. Sheesh."
But despite his objection to UFOs, Frank recorded a message to be beamed into space that basically invited extraterrestrials to visit our planet as long as they don't attack us.
You seem to make a lot of assumptions here regarding the show. I mean, the show doesn't, I'm not defending the show at all here, but, watching the show, they don't assert that Earth is being visited all the time by UFOs, and they don't reach that conclusion in most of the episodes we've seen so far.
They're investigating the possibility that this could be occurring.
Right. So they're not saying that, you know, this poking and prodding is taking place. And, you know, it never ceases to amaze me how many scientists dismiss the study of UFOs so quickly, saying it's not science. Well, why is it not science?
And making it such a ludicrous concept that it, you know, there are things you can investigate scientifically related to UFOs.
And we have so much documented evidence from credible sources, from military personnel, from so many witnesses and so many documented cases that point to the reality of mysterious UFOs, things that can't be explained. And as a scientist, you know, it boggles my mind how you can look at something that is an unknown and not be intrigued at that and not want to search for those answers.
Well, and I think that we know that in the past, people have suggested that, you know, scientists aren't interested in this study, which we know, well, this guy exception, we know not to be true. There are quite a few scientists who are very interested in that. But, you know, this whole getting the celebrities to respond via the wow reply, I watched some of the videos and it's almost disheartening. I think the worst one was Miss Universe. Is it Layla Lopes or something? She literally had the most arrogant, terrible reply I've ever seen, and it was, I can't believe that that's what's being beamed to represent us.
Well, from the start of this, when the idea of sending the reply to the WOW signal came up, you and I were fearful of the types of responses that would be sent, because you're having all of these, you know, yahoos and whatever they want, and everybody's joking around because they're not taking it seriously. And who knows how seriously.
The sponsored ones would be a little bit better,
but
than
again,
public.
it's an effort to market a show, so it's doing what it was meant to do.
Now let's talk with our guest today, Grant Cameron.
We have on the show with us today Grant Cameron. Grant, thanks so much for being on the show.
Thanks, Jason, and thanks for having me on.
Absolutely. Well, we talked about a couple weeks ago here on the show about a recent poll commissioned by National Geographic in support of their new show, Chasing UFOs. And one of the interesting results that was produced by this poll was the result that nearly 65% of Americans think that President Barack Obama would do better than Republican president nominee Mitt Romney at handling an alien invasion. And you being Mr. Presidential UFO, I would love to hear your thoughts on this poll.
It doesn't surprise me at all. I think some of the reasons for it is that the population of the United States is just sort of looking at the guy as if, like, who's the nice guy, who's the type of guy who we think will deal with the issue. Romney always comes across as very sort of standoffish, like he's a big businessman. That's basically all he can do. Obama's the guy that goes and watches basketball, and he's actually talked a number of times about aliens. In fact, he was asked about the alien invasion when he was running for president in 2008, and they asked him, if you became president, what would you do if you were faced with an alien invasion? And he made a joke out of it. He said basically it would depend whether they're Republicans or Democrats. And he's made a number of statements. He's made, of course, the famous statement that Will Smith talked about when Will Smith and his son were in the Situation Room in the White House, where Obama said, I can neither confirm nor deny that there are extraterrestrials, but if there had been an extraterrestrial meeting, it would have occurred in this room. He's referring to the Situation Room. And he also went to Roswell, and of course made the joke about the fact that the number one question that faces him as a president is from 9 and 10-year-old kids is, what about Roswell? Is it true? And he made the joke there that if I were to tell you, I'd have to kill you. And this is a joke that he's made before on other sort of topics like this. So he's sort of the guy who jokes around, and he's sort of plays with the issue. I think it's more of a it's just a thing where sort of people can more associate with Obama. In terms of Romney, he has a standoffishness, and of course he is Mormon. And when I go to UFO Congress, I always hang around with the Utah people, and a lot of them are from Salt Lake City, and they're ex-Mormon people. And I always ask them, I say, what do the Mormons think about? And this is from years gone by, long before Romney ran, and it doesn't seem to be an issue that is very sort of going along with the Romney beliefs, the Mormon beliefs, and he is a bishop in the church, so he's sort of a high official there. So I don't think he really believes in this kind of stuff. In fact, there was a rumor, and they were trying to get me to confirm it, and I wasn't able to confirm it, that he actually did state that he really doesn't go along with this kind of stuff. So that's basically where it stands. I think it's just basically an impression thing. I don't think it really means too much. And Obama is sort of the guy who's dealt with it, and that people can sort of associate with. It's a fun subject to most people, and it's something that they think Obama would be good at.
Yeah, I think you're right, and possibly just the fact that Obama, for being a Democrat, has actually displayed himself as being quite militaristic with the various campaigns that he's launched, and
Yeah.
so I think that could possibly play into it too. People saying that he's not afraid to attack. So.
Yeah. And also, speaking
Yeah.
of recent things in the news related to sort of disclosure, because a lot of people thought Obama was going to be the disclosure president, and that came and went, and we didn't hear anything about that. Is this Chase Brandon, the former CIA agent, who came out recently saying that he found evidence that Roswell indeed was an extraterrestrial event? And what do you think on what his motives here are on that?
Okay, I think it all ties in, and I think it ties into Obama, and I'll sort of quickly explain what I think is going on. Obama is doing the same thing that Bill and Hillary Clinton did. When Bill and Hillary Clinton were in the White House, I think I logged it. There was 25, 26, 27 times they talked about UFOs, Martians, extraterrestrials in their speech. And when they got out of the White House, we found that it was true, that they were very interested in this subject. Obama's doing the same thing. He's dropping these hints. He's sort of playing around with the subject. For example, at Roswell, he didn't have to bring up the Roswell subject. He didn't have to bring up this thing about the 9-year-old kid. He's bringing it up on purpose. Now, when the Chase Brandon thing first started, everybody, of course, looked at his background, and he is who he says he is. He is a high-ranking media guy with the CIA. The immediate questions that happened when it occurred was, how did he get on coast to coast? If you're a CIA agent, you don't just go in any working for Open Minds. You can't, as a member of Open Minds, just go and start talking to some media about what's going on at Open Minds. Only the people who speak on behalf of Open Minds can talk. The same thing. Chase Brandon can't go on coast to coast and talk about UFOs if he hasn't got approval. So the immediate thing that we thought, and there was a group of researchers working on this, headed by Robbie Graham, who's a media guy, who's an expert on media and UFOs in Great Britain. And the first question we asked was, how did he get on coast to coast? And we went to George Knapp and we said, why didn't you interview him? How did he get on coast to coast? Why is he talking about UFOs? He should have had approval from the CIA. So the immediate thing was to say he had to have had approval from the CIA. When he went on coast to coast, and this happened over 2 weeks ago, the story is now breaking. June 23rd, he went on. And when he went on, there was 4 of us who wrote a letter. And the letter was drafted by Robbie Graham, and it was sent to the CIA. The CIA replied to us and said, yes, we will investigate this. We will look at it quickly. They used the word quickly, and we will get back to you. So far, they have not gotten back to us. So what's the first thing they're going to do? They're going to pull the coast-to-coast tape. They're going to listen to what Chase Brandon said. They're going to say, what they're getting at. And then they're going to immediately phone up Chase Brandon because he's a high-ranking guy. They know his phone number. He's been around. And they approved his book. He's coming out with a book. So they know who he is. They've dealt with him just recently over this book. They're going to say to him either, what jail cell do you want to be in? Or they're going to say you're doing a good job. They're going to have approved what he did. And that's what I'm saying is going on. He would not have gone on coast to coast unless he had approval. Now, there's more evidence that's come up to show that Chase Brandon, this is a setup from the CIA. This is something the CIA set up for the 65th anniversary of Roswell. The way we know that is that Chase Brandon dealt with a researcher by the name of Dr. Matthew Alford out of Great Britain. And Alford talked to him after he went on coast to coast, asked him some questions. Chase Brandon talked to him. Then when we sent the CIA letter, Alford went back to him, and Chase Brandon would not answer his queries. He would no longer talk. And yet he goes and talks to Huffington Post, major media outlet, and he starts to talk again. So the CIA says they're going to investigate. They go, they do the investigation, they pull the tapes, they talk to Chase Brandon, and what happens? Chase Brandon goes and starts talking again. if he didn't have permission to talk about UFOs on Coast to Coast, they would have told him to shut up or you're going to jail, and he would not have gone to the Huffington Post. And I'll give you a little scoop. Chase Brandon is coming out again. This is not the last time he's done it. I know, I can't tell you when and where. He's coming out again, and he's going to talk again. This is something that's approved by the CIA, no doubt about it. An agent does not step out and speak on behalf of the CIA, especially if you're going to say, I'm from the CIA. The CIA says since 1953 that they haven't been involved in UFOs. They're lying. I found the file box. There's no way a guy from the CIA is going to embarrass the CIA and say that they have the file. So he's got the approval, which goes back to Obama. This is an election year. Obama may lose this election. He's nip and tuck. He's being out fundraised. He's in trouble. There's no way that the CIA, the same as an agent, will not step out and talk about stuff inside the CIA. The CIA will not step out and do something stupid in an election year unless they have the approval of the White House. They're not going to pull this thing off unless they've got Obama's okay. And that's what I think it was. It's the same thing that happened before. This is the 65th anniversary. If you go back to the 50th anniversary of Roswell, what happened? A guy came out with a book. His name was Philip Corso. Came out with a book, and he said, oh, I found this stuff in a filing cabinet. I've been in a 13 National Archives. I can tell you they do not keep high classified stuff in filing cabinets. And Chase Brandon said he found the Roswell box. He's in there. Here's this box with the Roswell stuff in it, and it's got Roswell written across it. They don't archive stuff that way. It's not done that way. You don't have the photographs with the documents, with the crash material. It's all compartmentalized. The photos go to the photo guy. It's all separated. It's not going to be in one box. The box is garbage. And what they're doing, if you're an agent, say Jason, you're an agent, you're a CIA guy, and you did a bunch of stuff, and you want to tell your story about what you did. You're the CIA, you're the 007 guy. You want your grandchildren to know that you saved the world. You go to the CIA, you say, I want to tell this story. What the CIA will say is, okay, you've been a good guy, you've been a CIA agent, we'll help you out. You write the book, and then we're going to change the facts of the story. We're going to take the compartment, the classified stuff out, and you can go and tell the story. We're just going to change stuff. And that's what's happened. They want people to know that Roswell occurred. And what they're doing is they told Chase Brandon, you go tell this story. You say you found this box. And the box doesn't exist. I can guarantee you there is no Roswell box. The box doesn't exist. They told him, you go tell the story, and it will come back to us. And what they're going to do, my prediction is they're going to say, Chase Brandon said this. We can't find the files. That's the end of the story. The story gets out the same as Philip Corso told the story, and it started to fall apart after he came out. Philip Corso was a nice guy. They wanted to promote his book. They wanted this story of the 50th anniversary of Roswell. They wanted the Roswell thing out, and they put the story out. It's the same as a fictionalized version of a spy novel. They're putting the material out, surrounded by a fictional story. The core pieces are there. And the last thing I'll say is I've just got an article which is going on the website today. It's the story of Falcon. This is a story that was broken by Greg Bishop, the identity of the Falcon. I wrote a story about the Falcon, and in that story, I talk about Bill Moore in 1980 being approached by this high-ranking CIA official. And this high-ranking official said to him, we want to help you get the material out. And what we're going to do is we're going to give you this material without breaking the law. That's the key. Chase Brandon, if he's telling the truth, if this is what happened, he has violated national security. And you can see right now the Congress is going after Obama for the leaks on the drones and on the hacking of the Iranian nuclear site. And they basically are saying, we're going to prosecute the president. If the president has to obey national security laws, Philip Corso and Chase Brandon have to obey national security laws. He's not going to say anything that's classified. In fact, Chase Brandon, the last thing I'll say, Chase Brandon said a very weird thing. He said, the box is not classified, but what's in it, I can't talk about. It's classified. And that's the whole point. He can't talk about a certain document, a certain photograph. That's classified material. But the idea of the box is not classified simply because the box doesn't exist. So it's a story that they weave in together. And Obama, I think, is behind it. This would not happen unless Obama had approved this.
The story is so fascinating, and you recently published a piece about it on your website, presidentialufo.com. Are you continuing to research this? Are you going to be writing about it more?
The last couple of days, I mean, it's almost no time to sleep. The emails are coming by the minute. This story is moving fast. There's a lot of people involved with it. George Knapp has taken a look at it. Billy Cox is looking at it. There's a bunch of letters into the CIA. This is a big story. There's a lot of stuff going on, and we're researching it. I'm pretty sure I know what's going on, and we'll see where it goes. And the Falcon story is also a big story. The story about the identity of the Falcon, and it's the same thing. The Falcon was a high-ranking CIA guy. Bill Moore worked for the CIA. Jamie Chandray worked for the CIA. The CIA has done what Chase Brandon, this story, the CIA, and if you read the Falcon article on presidentialufo.com that's going up today, you'll see in the Falcon article, I go back for 30 years and I show you that they've done this over and over and over again for the last 30 years. This is how they're telling the UFO story. They're telling it in a fictional way without breaking national security, and they want us to know, they want us to talk about this kind of stuff. They're just not going to give you a solid piece of evidence that you can end the cover-up with, but they do want you to know Roswell is real. There was a live alien, that a lot of this stuff that is rumored around here is true, and this is how they're doing it.
Well, this is fascinating stuff, Grant, and I got to say, I love your research. You are a thorough researcher, and I love watching your work. You do great stuff, and presidentialufo.com is a great place to go to see your research. So good luck with all of that. That sounds exciting, and we are extremely excited to be seeing you in, well, about a half a year now, in February 2013. You're going to be a speaker at the International UFO Congress.
Yeah.
So do you have...
Yeah, and I'm honored to come.
Do you know yet what you're going to be speaking about?
I do know what I'm going to talk about. It's not going to be about this unless this story really gets big. I'll change it to this story. The story I'm going to tell is what I think is the most important story, and that's the story about consciousness, about the fact that the mental phenomena aspect, how we deal with UFOs, how we interact with the aliens. This is the most important story that I'm going to be talking about. The idea of consciousness, it came up last year at UFO Congress, and I'm going to extend it. And it's a fascinating, I think it's one of the most important subjects in ufology, the idea of mental phenomena.
Awesome, awesome, great. Well, we really look forward to seeing you in February, and thanks so much for everything you're doing. And make sure you visit them at presidentialufo.com.
Yep. Thanks so much, Grant. We appreciate your time today.
Beautiful. Thanks.
Thanks.
Since our interview with Grant, the CIA has responded to the message that Grant said he had sent requesting information or confirmation from the CIA. And although the CIA is denying the existence of this mysterious Roswell box, they aren't directly outright saying that Chase Brandon is lying either. Very interesting development, but you can find out more on Grant's website at presidentialufo.com. That's all for this episode of Spacing Out. Be sure to visit openminds.tv for all the latest news, and join us again next week for another show.
Thanks for joining us. Remember, we always welcome your submissions. If you have something you'd like to contribute to the show, you can always email us at contact@openminds.tv. I'm Maureen Ellsbury.
And I'm Jason McClellan. We will see you in the future.